Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode on Science Affair. My name is Mariam.
And my name is Mariam.
And today we will be covering 3D ultrasound imaging of fetal peaks and attempt to investigate the ethics behind the procedure.
3D ultrasounds have become increasingly popular and readily available. They generate lifelike images of the fetus that are used primarily for recreational purposes and even sometimes for medical diagnostics. Today, we are lucky to have with us Dr. Jasmine, who has agreed to do a live interview to help explain the process and concerns around 3D imaging. We will now hand it over to our colleague Hanin.
Hi, Dr. Jasmine. I would like to start off first by asking roughly how does this procedure work?
Well, in order to obtain a 3D image, we actually need to start off first using a 2D image. When completing the 2D ultrasound, we find the mid-sagittal area of the fetus. Once it is found, the 2D image is saved and then transferred to 3D, that is actually switched by a press of a button on the control panel. The next step is to then find an appropriate area of region that covers the section we are after. Of course, that is usually going to be the face. Then lastly, the acquisition process generates a 3D image while the probe is being held on the same spot, which would roughly be around 45 minutes. The way ultrasounds work is by the sound waves bouncing off the fetus and creating an echo which generates the image. The process also uses surface rendering which collects all the data to create the 3D image.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. So before going to complete the ultrasound, does the patient need any referral or consultation from a doctor or qualified practitioner first?
Well, no actually, and that is a huge debate in the community. Many believe that it is primarily used for recreational purposes rather than diagnostic, and therefore disregards the need to have a doctor sign off to allow the process to happen. However, many doctors and qualified practitioners have protested that it is something the patient should consult with her doctor first, before completing the ultrasound.
Do you think there are any ethical violations with this process not needing any referral from a qualified doctor or practitioner?
To an extent, yes. The problem is that the process of 3D ultrasounds takes 45 minutes to complete, which extends the threshold of heat that should be placed on the fetus and the mother.
You mentioned that the procedure exceeds the average heat threshold. This can pose certain threats to the mother and the offspring. Has there been any investigations to prove whether or not this procedure could have future potential harms on those involved?
There actually hasn't been any proper investigations as the process holds ethical problems. This is due to needing multiple pregnant women to undertake the investigation with potential harm that can be applied, and then study them and their offspring for years, gathering tests on them constantly. This violates so many codes and is the primary reason there hasn't been any research to finally prove whether or not there is truly any risks.
Why do you think there has been a rising popularity in the use of 3D imaging?
It's a great way to get a more motherly bond with her unborn child. The images produce a more lifelike photo of the fetus rather than a dark black and white image.
Are there any disadvantages of undergoing this procedure?
Well, as mentioned before, the process does take 45 minutes, which can cause some discomfort for the women, and in some cases, the fetus may not be in the correct position, which will affect the results. Also, the process costs about $150 in Australia, which is quite expensive.
As we mentioned earlier, there isn't a need for a doctor's referral to complete the 3D ultrasound. Does that mean that anyone can perform the task?
Yes, actually, and that is another huge ethical problem. The process does not require any qualified practitioners to complete the ultrasound, which means that anyone can just be trained on site how to use the machines. This causes huge concerns, as those completing the task may not have adequate training in the processes of ultrasounds or any other background knowledge.
So with everything that's been said, can you justify the fact that the FDA hasn't approved 3D imaging?
Well, there is a huge ethical stance in 3D imaging that ranges from the unknown side effects to unqualified practitioners. It is, however, hard to make a final conclusion on the scenario, as it can also be used to diagnose certain deformities that cannot be seen on a conventional 2D ultrasound. Furthermore, there actually isn't any evidence that proves 3D scans cause any harm to the fetus and the mother. So in a way, yes, I do agree. Until there is a full conclusion and proof that 3D ultrasounds prove otherwise, ethically it wouldn't be right to approve it.
Other than recreational purposes and allowing a real-life image of a baby, can a 3D ultrasound show any deformities of a pre-born baby?
Many women that do perform a 3D ultrasound do it for recreational purposes and to get a real-life image of their baby. Although 3D scans do show physical deformities, and cleft lip is a common one, so yes. They are able to show physical deformities that 2D scans cannot usually pick up on, making the use of it advantageous.
Would you call 3D imaging a medical practice, or do you believe it has grown to be more as a commercial practice, as over the past couple of years numbers are increasing with pregnant women choosing to do 3D ultrasounds?
Currently, it is not a medical practice, but more so an amusement. However, in the near future, in combination with 2D ultrasound, it is believed to be a means of a more accurate and interactive examination in pre-birth diagnosis.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Dr. Jasmine, for coming on to our show. We will now head back to Mariam and Mariam.
Although there isn't a definite answer on whether or not the procedure is safe to use, the ethical sides to pose the response to still be careful and at least consult your GP before inquiring to do a 3D ultrasound.
Thank you all for joining us today. We hope to see you all next week on A Science Affair.